On July 29th, 1989, at the Central American and Caribbean Championships held in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Javier Sotomayor did something no human had ever done in recorded history when he jumped 8 feet on the high jump, which is a feat that has never been done again in recorded history. Here's the story behind Javier and how he achieved this epic moment today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. And today's trivia question to listen out for is, why did Javier not compete in the Olympics till 1992? Now, the high jump is a very unique competition, as over the years, there's been so many different techniques on what's the best way to do a high jump. Do you go over with one leg at a time? Do you just jump and topple over head first? And it wasn't until 1968 when we first started to jump what we see today as the Fosbury's flop, where Dick Fosbury of Oregon jumped going over his back, and has proved to be the best way for us to show how high we can actually jump, which the story behind that deserves its own full episode. But today we're going to focus on the greatest high jumper to ever live in Javier Sotomayor. As Javier was born in Cuba to a relatively poor area, as his father worked as a sugar factory maintenance man and his mother was a daycare worker. But Javier showed to have great athletic ability and was actually spotted playing basketball when he was 14 by some track coaches when he jumped for the ball and hit his head on the rim. And the coaches convinced him to try to compete in high jump, as it didn't require the skill that basketball did with your hands. You just needed to use that God-given skill of jumping that he already had. And at that point, he already had a vertical of 43 inches without any formal training. And in 1983, his first year, even trying to high jump, he had already cleared 2 meters, which is over 6.5 feet. And his best jump that first year was 2.15 meters, which is over 7 feet. And on May 19th, 1984, he set the junior world record at 2.33 meters, which is 7 feet, 7.5 inches, which is a junior record that is still active to this day and would have been good enough to make the podium at the 1984 Olympics, although he was not able to compete as Cuba was boycotting the 1984 Olympics due to it being held in Los Angeles as retaliation for the United States and other countries boycotting the Olympics in 1980 that were held in Moscow. But that didn't stop him from competing, and he continued to improve his personal best. And on September 8th, 1988, at a meet held in Spain, just 4 days before the opening ceremony of the 1988 Olympic Games, he set a world record jumping 2.43 meters, which is 7 feet, 11.5 inches. And despite being the best jumper in the world at the time, again, Cuba boycotted the Seoul Olympics, so he was not able to compete. So 2 times he was denied the chance to win an Olympic medal that he very likely would have won due to his country's politics. But his drive was more of an inward drive as he continued to jump more and more as he wanted to better himself. And on July 29th, 1989, at the Central America and Caribbean Championships in San Juan, Puerto Rico, he did something no one had ever done before when he jumped 2.44 meters, which is 8 feet, which is the average height of a ceiling in the average house in America. And no person in recorded history has ever done this feat before or since. But he wasn't done. And despite the following year, in 1990, him having issues with his knees and heels and being in and out of competitions, but he came back in 1991 to continue his dominance and was able to make it to the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, his very first Olympic, facing against the best competition in the world, and with the bar set at 2.35 meters and all other competitors missing, including himself when he missed 2 times and on his final attempt was able to pass the bar, giving him his very first gold medal at 2.35 meters or 7 feet, 9.25 inches. But in 1993, he came back at the World Indoor Championships. He was able to break his own record, jumping 2.45 meters or 8 feet and a quarter inch, which is the current world record and the 5th longest world record that has not been broken in track and field history. And in 1996 at the Atlanta Olympics, despite struggling with nagging injuries, he tried to defend his title, but sadly was not able to make even the podium, as he qualified for the finals, but was only able to finish in 11th place. Following this, he underwent surgery to heal his knee and heel injuries and skipped the 1997 season to rehab and came back strong. And then at the 1999 Pan Am Games, Sotomayor won the Olympic gold medal. But just a few days after that, the Games officials announced that his urine had tested positive for drugs and cocaine, and he was stripped of his medal and sent back to Cuba in disgrace. And at the time, doping was rampant in the Olympic athletics. We often remember Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson, who was stripped his gold medal at the 1988 Seoul Olympics for winning the 100-meter dash, although Sotomayor vehemently denied that he had done any drugs, as he was a huge anti-drug promoter. But despite everything, he was banned for 2 years, although his suspension was cut in half, and he was able to compete at the age of 32 at the Olympic Games in Sydney, being one of the oldest competitors in his event. And despite the finals being rainy and windy, he was still able to jump. He was able to jump 2.32 meters, which is good enough for a silver medal, just behind Russians Sergei Klingin. And shortly after this, Javier Sotomayor, the greatest high jumper in history, retired from jumping. Although part of his retirement was due to him actually testing positive again for an anabolic steroid. And to avoid a lifetime ban for having a second positive test, he instead retired. Although Javier Sotomayor still claims innocence in both these tests, and even the president of Cuba at the time, Fidel Castro, said that the Cuban-American mafia had set him up to bring down the Cuban community, as he was the greatest Cuban athlete at the time. Although Sotomayor claims that an Achilles tendon injury was the reason why he actually retired. Either way, it was close to the end of his career, and it was a good time for him to step out of this murky area he was entering in, whether injuries, mafia, steroids, who knows. He still is one of the greatest jumpers to ever live, and his highest vertical jump was measured to be 49 inches, which is still among the highest of all time. And he still has the record for the 3 highest high jumps of all time. And not one person has ever jumped over 8 feet besides Javier Sotomayor. It's great company to be in, as he is the only one in the world. And it would have been great to see how many medals he could have won if he was just allowed to compete outside of all the political unrest during the 1980s. If you like this story, please let us know. Leave us a rating or review wherever you're listening. And you can even leave us a comment saying a topic you would love us to cover, and leave us your name so we can get that done just for you. And come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History. And did you catch the answer to today's trivia question? Why did Javier Sotomayor not compete in the Olympics till 1992 at Barcelona? And the answer was due to Cuba politics not wanting to support the anti-communist countries of America and South Korea at the 1984 Los Angeles Games and the 1988 Seoul Games.